In the last major supply chain disruption, grocery stores in the United States had 3 days of food inventory on the shelves. 3 days, not 3 weeks, not 3 months. 3 days before the shelves went empty and stayed empty. Most people reading that think, that won't happen here. That won't happen to me. Those are exactly the words written in the journals of people who starved during the Irish Famine, during the Siege of Leningrad, during the Venezuelan food collapse of 2016, which happened in a country that 1 decade earlier had the highest standard of living in South America. Collapse doesn't announce itself. It arrives inside a system that looked fine yesterday. The people who ate during every one of those events had one thing in common. They planted before they needed to. Today we're covering the 3 crops that sustained human civilizations through their worst collapses. Not the prettiest crops, not the most exotic. The 3 that produce the most calories per square foot, store the longest without electricity, and regenerate themselves from saved seeds forever. If that already hits different than the usual survival content, hit the like button right now. It tells the algorithm this information matters, and it might put this video in front of someone who genuinely needs it. One of these 3 crops has a property that most survival gardens completely ignore, and without it, the other 2 eventually fail. We'll get there. Number 3, potatoes, the crop that kept Europe alive for 200 years. Here's a number worth understanding. 1 pound of potatoes delivers 350 calories, and enough complex carbohydrates to fuel a full day of physical labor. Not light work, hard physical labor, the kind you'll be doing when the infrastructure that makes modern life effortless no longer exists. The Irish population grew from 3 million to 8 million people in under a century, almost entirely because of the potato. Caloric density that fit in the ground, required minimal tools, and tolerated cold that would destroy most other crops. When the blight came and the potatoes failed, 1 million people died and another million emigrated in a single year. That's the power of this crop, in both directions. Now here's the survival problem most people face with potatoes: space. The solution is a potato tower, and it changes the math entirely. You can take a 4-foot section of chicken wire, form it into a cylinder 3 feet wide, stake it in place. Fill the bottom 6 inches with soil mixed with straw. Plant 4 seed potatoes on top. As the plants grow to 8 inches, add another 6-inch layer of soil and straw, burying the lower growth but leaving the top exposed. Repeat until the tower reaches 4 feet high. Result: 80 to 150 potatoes from a 3-foot circle of ground. The same tower, reused every year. Seed saving requires nothing. Just keep a few small potatoes from the harvest. Each eye becomes a new plant in spring. Potatoes don't just feed you. They feed you at scale, in small spaces, through cold weather without electricity. That's why every civilization that survived a collapse had them in the ground. But calories without protein will eventually break your body down. Muscle loss, immune failure, cognitive decline. You can survive on potatoes for weeks. You cannot rebuild on them indefinitely. The next crop solves that. Before we get to number 2, if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. This channel covers 1 forgotten system per week. Miss one, and you might miss the one that actually applies to your situation. Number 2, beans, the protein source that requires nothing but dirt and a trellis. Dry beans are 15 to 20% protein by weight. They store for years in sealed containers with 0 electricity. A single 6-foot trellis produces 20 pounds of dry beans per season, using only 2 feet of ground space. During the Great Depression, bean and legume cultivation in home gardens across the United States increased by over 40%. Not because the government told people to plant them, because families who had them ate. But families who didn't. The Roman legion, the most effective military force in human history for over 400 years, was sustained on a diet built primarily around legumes. Not because they lacked better options, because legumes delivered the protein load required to sustain physical performance across months of campaigning without refrigeration or resupply. Here's how to grow them for maximum output. Plant climbing varieties: pole beans, runner beans. Not bush varieties. Bush beans produce for fresh eating. Climbing beans produce for storage. Plant seeds along the base of your trellis after last frost. They climb without assistance. Water moderately. Harvest when pods are dry and brittle. That's full maturity. Shell them, store in sealed containers, and you have protein that lasts 3 years. And seed saving requires nothing beyond the harvest itself. The beans you eat are the beans you plant. Keep a handful back each season. You never buy seeds again. These two crops, potatoes and beans, give you calories and protein. Together, they can sustain a human body through an extended crisis. But there's a third variable most survival gardens never account for. One that doesn't show up in the first month of a collapse. It shows up in month 4, month 6, month 8. And by the time it becomes visible, it's already too late to fix. Number 1. Peas, the crop that saves everything else. Peas are a nitrogen-fixing legume. They pull nitrogen from the atmosphere and deposit it directly into the soil through their root systems. Why does that matter? Because every crop you grow depletes the soil of nitrogen. Potatoes deplete it heavily, and beans deplete it moderately. After 2 or 3 growing seasons without nitrogen replenishment, yields collapse, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily and irreversibly. In a world without commercial fertilizer, without supply chains delivering soil amendments, the garden that fed you in year 1 starts failing in year 2. By year 3, you're producing half the calories at twice the effort. Medieval farmers understood this without knowing the chemistry. They called it crop rotation. They knew that fields planted with peas or clover recovered. Fields that weren't didn't. The result is nitrogen, and peas deliver it for free every season simply by growing. But peas don't just fix your soil, they feed you. Shelling peas, dried and stored, deliver protein comparable to beans. And snap peas produce fresh food in 60 days, faster than almost any other crop on this list. They climb, so they're space efficient. They tolerate frost, meaning they produce before anything else is ready in spring, exactly when stored food runs lowest and the hunger gap is most dangerous. Plant as soon as soil can be worked. One 6-foot trellis produces 5 to 10 pounds per season. Let some pods dry completely on the vine for seed saving. Those seeds stay viable for 3 years. And every season you grow peas, your soil gets stronger, your potatoes yield more, your beans produce heavier. The entire system improves. This is the property most survival gardens ignore. Not any single crop, the relationship between them. Potatoes feed you, beans rebuild you. Peas sustain the system that makes both possible year after year. They remove any one of the 3 and the other 2 eventually fail. That's not a gardening tip. That's systems thinking applied to food security. And it's the same logic that kept communities fed through every major collapse in recorded history. 3 crops. That's the minimum viable food system. Not 20 varieties, not a complex permaculture design, not expensive equipment or specialized knowledge. 3 crops that grow in zones 4 and 5, covering most of North America. 3 crops that store without electricity. 3 crops whose seeds you save and replant forever without buying anything again. The window to act is before the need exists. Seeds are available now. Ground can be prepared now. Knowledge costs nothing. But when the moment arrives, and history suggests it arrives for every generation eventually, the people eating will be the ones who planted during the calm, not the ones who planned to, the ones who actually put seeds in the ground. If this was useful, like the video, 1 second. It helps this information reach people who are still figuring out that the system they depend on has an expiration date, and if you want to know what comes next, subscribe. Every week, this channel covers one forgotten system, one historical method that worked without it, and one practical action you can take before you need it. No panic, no politics, no gear obsession, just the knowledge that used to be common sense and somehow stopped being taught. The seeds won't plant themselves, but now you know which ones to buy.